Hi all, thanks for joining me in this final day of orientation week or O week. And we're going to be looking at enhancing digestion. So the quote here is, take care of your body. It's the only place you have to live. I think is a good place to start. And I get asked about digestive issues a lot, probably most people who come to see me. And that's why I thought I'd include it in this orientation week, because it is so crucial to our general good health. And so throughout the program, we focus on what we can do each day and each meal. And we've got a lot more to come in regards to the diet and many different aspects about digestion, but I'll run through a few here. So you've probably come across the microbiome, and it, plays a huge role. And you can see here the digestive tract is just a really, really long tube that goes from our mouth to the anus. And so along there are different things that will happen in regards to digesting and absorbing the food that we eat. And of course, there are an enormous amount of things in our world that can negatively impact on that. And some of those are listed here, like eating on the run, eating when we're stressed and busy, eating too much, eating the wrong kind of things. And, some of us just have a sensitive digestive system anyway. It might be due to genetics or whatever. So it's, again, one thing that we can actually work on and improve, and that can help our overall health. So you may not really think about stress and digestion, but it really does adversely affect our gut. And it really tells our body, you know what, we're in a stressed state. And in a stressed state, the body really understands that it doesn't need to shunt as much blood towards, digestion and making digestive enzymes and therefore breaking down the food. It can also limit somewhat the effectiveness of our immune system and our reproductive systems, which we probably don't necessarily need anymore, but certainly it will disrupt hormones, which we'll talk about further on in the program. And so as a result, we can get what we call, you probably heard the term leaky gut, because it literally, the lining of the gut renews itself every 3 days. It's a really high turnover of cells. And within that time, if we're not eating as well as we could and should, or if we're stressed, then of course the integrity of that gut lining may be affected. And that can leave us more vulnerable. And of course, there are a lot of digestive issues, from reflux through to, issues with the bowel, diarrhea, constipation, IBDs, IBSs, all sorts of things that also might be a sign that, well, stress is possibly one of the drivers, but it's also going to exacerbate everything. So there are foods perhaps to avoid if you've got reflux, and I've got a few of them here: some carbonated drinks, coffee, alcohol, citrus fruits, chocolate, peppermints, and spicy foods. And of course, always eating late at night is going to exacerbate things. And we go into that in depth in week 1 about how we can best eat and the timing of foods and so on, and how that can actually really support us. Mindful eating is a bit of a buzzword, and I can't believe I have to remind people to chew food, because it really is that important. We often inhale food because we're probably eating at the same time as we're doing something else, which I'm guilty of as well. But it really does mean that we could set aside time to have, even 15 minutes to eat a lunch, so that we're not distracted by something else, and we can turn our mind, to the meal that we're eating. Chewing thoroughly 20 times each mouthful. Have a go at that for the next meal that you do, and see how much longer it takes you. But what that does is it actually breaks the food down so well that your body will have an easier time of it digesting. And so maybe putting cutlery down between bites it can help you slow yourself down. And, don't put something else in your mouth until you finish chewing the last mouthful. Fabulous fiber. I mean, of course, we all know that fiber is really good for our bowels, and it is partly responsible for the diversity of the bugs in our gut. And so the more diverse the food, the more diverse the microbiome, and the greater health benefits, essentially. So the food that passes into the large bowel has resisted digestion so far. And of course, there are loads of reasons why dietary fiber is helpful. It can reduce our risk of bowel issues, bowel cancer, diverticular disease. It certainly has a role to play in heart diseases and diabetes, and also just in good weight management, because it keeps us fuller for longer. So it is really, really important. So there are a couple of kinds of fiber, soluble and insoluble, and we need around 25 to 30 grams a day. So I've got a handout there that has the dietary fiber that you will find in foods, so that maybe you can have a look and see how much fiber you might be eating now, and you might get a bit of a shock. Increasing, seasonal fruits and veg is always a really good idea. And of course, our grains are also part of a high fiber diet. Fermented foods, you've probably come across quite a few of them, and we've used them for centuries, as much to preserve the food, maybe improve flavour, but it also has conferred really good health benefits. And so we know that the fermentation process can actually assist in terms of being a prebiotic, and so food for the bugs in our gut. And as I go back to the idea that, having a diverse diet is a really good idea. Again, really helpful for diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol, and bowel issues. And I have, again, in the handout, some recipes that you might like to have a look at. I mean, of course, we can buy fermented foods, but you can also make them yourselves. So I've got that in today's handout. So buying local, fresh, seasonal, if you can, organic foods is always going to be helpful. If we can often get foods the year round, and it can be helpful just to go, well, what's actually available? What should I be eating? Because you'll find that often those foods are probably higher in the nutrients that could be helpful for the body in that season. I've also got on the next slide, we're going to look at the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. And here they are. Of course, the Dirty Dozen are foods that have generally got more pesticides, herbicides, whatever. And you can see there that they often are delicate things like tomatoes and the strawberries, cherries, but other things like apples and pears, of course, which perhaps could withstand a little bit of a scrub. The Clean 15, they're, of course, also foods that have an outer shell, so that you can, sweet corn, you can take the corn sheaths off that, and onions you can peel, other things, papaya there, and certainly kiwi fruits. So if you can at all, sort of stick to the Clean 15, and the Dirty Dozen you might want to consider if you can afford buying them organically. If you can't afford buying them organically, or they're simply not available, then you actually can wash the foods. And I've got a recipe here of 50 milligrams of baking soda in a litre of water to remove the pesticides. If you did that for the berries, you'd probably have to eat them fairly quickly. They don't really like that. But if at all possible, you could buy organic. Otherwise, here's another interesting method to, try and make the food as clean as possible. Foods to avoid. Well, it's not going to be very unusual for avoiding sugar, trans fats, and they're found in anything that's usually commercially baked. Refined white flour, so any, cookies and things like that. And of course, the artificial sweeteners and preservatives might also be, we can't avoid all of them, but of course, if you can manage to have foods that don't look like this, they really are discretionary foods, and maybe, occasional foods once or twice a week, if that. I do have, it's hard to know artificial flavorings and sweeteners and dyes and colorings and preservatives and things, but I've got here a choice article that does have a link to all the numbers. Pretty much you can see on here there are, deli meats. You can see the lollies there and the chips, of course, things that are going to have flavor enhancers in them and preservatives. So easy to avoid, but maybe you just want to go and check out and make sure that you are more aware of the numbers. One of the best things you can do for your body, not only your digestion, is to drink fluid and drink water. If you don't really know how much to drink, it's around 33 mils, I beg your pardon, per kilo of body weight. And then adding a liter for every hour of exercise that you do on top of that. But it really is incredibly important to help with our bowel and our joints, and also just, transport the nutrients around in our body and our blood. Stimulating digestion, excellent idea. We've got lots and lots of herbs that will do that. There's, fennel tea can be quite nice. There are a lot of dandelion root teas, and you can get spiced dandelion. So the cinnamon, the cardamom, the cloves, things like that. The dandy chai, or even a black tea chai can be helpful for digestive support. All of those aromatic herbs are usually quite warming, and so that brings blood flow to that area, and they taste good. You can also try lemon or apple cider vinegar in warm water. That's often something that's been spoken of to help with digestion, and it is the flavor. It's not that you want a sweet drink, so I wouldn't be adding in any honey to those, but you might, if it is too tart, maybe you just want to back off and not put as much in there. But they can be stimulating to the digestive process. And just a word on our lemon and ACV, they might affect tooth enamel. So just check with your dentist if they think that might be an issue for you, and then you can maybe try some other digestive herbal ideas that were above there. So our last slide here is eat less crap, eat more food. And the crap being the carbonated drinks, the refined sugars, artificial sweeteners, colors, and the processed and fast foods. And of course, eat more of the fruits and veg, organic, lean protein, omega-3 fatty acids from our fish and nuts and green leafy vegetables, and drink more water. So that's from Dr. Peggy Malone. Thank you for joining me. I really hope that you've enjoyed our O week and that you've found some useful information. In the next 5 weeks, I go through each of the weeks specifically to really unpack each concept, whether it's diet or exercise or, stress management, breath work, and certainly the psychology of menopause in the last weeks. And I also have the added support of the experts each week. So I really hope that you will find this O week helpful and decide to come and join us and thrive through menopause. Sign up at handcraftedhealth.com.au. I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you.